Today we're going to be looking at the new William Optics 2-inch dual-speed rack and pinion scat focuser with the digital gauge and RotoLock. We've got this opened up. This just arrived and it's inside this box here, and let's get this out of the way. It's a little bit bigger than I thought it was going to be. There's no instructions, just the focuser. Okay, so here's the focuser, and there's a couple of features on it that are kind of neat. Right off, the build quality looks really good. We have the Celestron orange, which matches the Celestron color. I got this for a 8-inch edge, so that's going to be kind of neat. And over here is the digital readout gauge. This is the on-off button, and you press that there and it comes on. And right now it is reading 342, but it's racked all the way in, so we would zero that out. There's a button right here. We press 0. Now it's zeroed out. This is handy if you've got different filters that have different glass thicknesses so that you can catalog each filter. The other nice thing about it, and what makes this unique, is that it has what they call a RotoLock, which is this. And this has got a nice grip on it, by the way. I mean, you could probably easily turn that even with gloves on. So this is really similar to this Batter Quick Lock, which I did have on the 8-inch edge. And I really liked this because it locks and unlocks real easily by going that way or this way to release it. What's great about this, if you're an imager, is that it's self-centering, so the camera will automatically self-center, and it eliminates the brass rings and the little screws that sometimes get kind of hard to untighten and you're not sure. This gives it a nice firm lock, and this was really a joy to use. So having that on a focuser this is the first time I think this is made available for a focuser like this. Although Batter may have one for a scat, but I'm not sure. And maybe if they don't, by the time this video plays for a while, maybe they will. But anyway, these guys got it, and they've got it in the 1.25 inch, and it also for the 2-inch. So that's really, really nice. I really like that. Now on this side we have a thermometer, and it's in Celsius and Fahrenheit, the larger numbers being in Celsius and the smaller ones being in Fahrenheit. That could kind of come in handy if you're out late and there's a temperature shift, and it's maybe a good idea to check your focus, because that's going to change the dynamics of the mirror and your filters, the expansion and contraction, that is. So under here we have the focuser lock, and there's a tension set screw here to adjust the tension. Right now it's pretty silky smooth, and the action on this is pretty good from what I can feel. And the other thing is, when you screw this into the back of your scat, you can rotate this around if you want to turn your camera around, and then this locks it down. Okay, so let's move on to installing it into the 8-inch edge. Now here are the scat threads that this is good to go right out of the box. It'll go right onto that. We'll put this on here, and this is loose. We loosen this screw up here and then just kind of align that. And don't force it, of course, you know, because you don't want to cross thread this puppy. Take your time. Not in a rush. And we're just about there. If we put it perpendicular like that, this gives us access up here, and I can also see the digital readout. However, as far as the thermometer that's on the bottom, I wouldn't be able to see that. I do like this layout right here, because this is kind of neat, you know, and you do get the digital readout. So I think I'm going to keep it there. And that feels pretty nice. Let's draw it out. I've got it unlocked. We'll pull it out, and that's the brass rack, and here you can see the machinery, and they've got that set in there with 2 Allen screws into the barrel. That looks pretty well done. Alright, now one of the most important things to remember when you buy a focuser for an 8-inch edge or a 9-inch, each one is optimized for a certain distance from the focal plane of the chip of the camera that you're going to be using. So if you have a filter wheel and an off-axis guider and all these kinds of things, you should be within 133.35 millimeters plus or take. Keep that in mind when you're shopping for a focuser. These lengths are important. You could still image if you're out of that zone, but that's the sweet spot. That's where you're going to get the maximum illumination and maximize that imaging circle that this 8-inch edge puts out. So I've already done the math on this, and once I put the 2-inch T-ring adapter onto the STF 8300 Santa Barbara camera that we've got right here, I've got the little shorty, and the way it works out, this is going to get me 129.58 centimeters. And then I could take the difference out here in the focuser. You want to be a little short of it because you can always add by bringing the focuser out. Whether you buy this focuser or a Feather Touch, optimize that imaging circle. So let's get this in. And I usually run it this way to keep the cables. Let's loosen that up. Ooh, that's sweet. Nice. And these grips are really nice. They look pretty substantial. I mean, even with gloves on, I could see a guy could have no problem here. Yeah, that's nice and snug. That ain't going anywhere. All right, so that gives me a little bit to where I can come out with it, you know, and focus it out a little bit to get it dialed in just right. But right now, I'm real close to that sweet spot, within 3 millimeters. So that worked out real great for me. The problem I was having, if you looked at one of my other videos, I did put this ring here to make it easier to focus, and that has worked really well. But the basic problem that I find is that because you're moving the entire mirror, when you're focusing on a star like in nebulosity is what I use, and you find focus, and whenever you go to touch this, because you're shifting the primary mirror, the star usually whoop, just goes right off the screen, and it's really frustrating. And no matter how delicate, and this certainly has helped, but you still wind up losing stars. And so my goal was to be able to really fine-tune it without moving the mirror, and because we're not moving the mirror, we should be able to keep that star there, with the only play being the vibration moving the scope and not the mirror. But when you move the mirror, man, it just flies off the handle. And so some of my images I noticed were coming out a little bit soft. If I was right on the target, I was reluctant to try to focus it, because then it would shift the target. And you know how that is. It takes a long time to get that framing just right. And so that's what this was about. Another consideration is if you're going to be adding essentially 2.5 or 3 pounds to the end here, you're going to have some issues with your declination. And I already have this up this way as much as I care to take it without starting to come off the saddle. So what I did was I put a Vixen dovetail on top of the scope using the taps that they have here. This will allow me now to move the guide scope up to add more weight to the front end of the scope to help counterbalance that. And if that is not enough, okay, right underneath here is a tap for a 1/4-inch screw. This is a 2-pound counterweight that I can attach here to offset that even more if need be. And they do sell these declination counterweight to offset that focuser. So once you've established the distance for the particular scat that you're using, and you've adjusted your focuser to where your camera is right at that sweet spot, then what you can do is turn on your digital gauge dial, whatever number, it might be a plus and negative, whatever it is, you zero it out, and now you know where the sweet spot is, so that if you have to change the focus in or out to accommodate a filter, you can kind of judge how far off you're going from the sweet spot. So I can see right off the bat that this digital gauge, because it's so sensitive, is going to be a real handy feature to use on this scat. Okay, so we've got it racked out, and so now to get back to where we need to be for that 5 and approximately 1/4 to optimize for that imaging circle. We'll dial it in. We're at 88, 60.4, minus, got to back out a little bit, 3, back out a little bit, -1, right there. And so now we're at 00. So now I'm going to lock up the focuser, and there, locked up, and as you can see, it didn't even move it. That's a real good indicator that we're not going to get any focus shift once we lock that down. The other feature of this focuser is that you can rotate the entire focuser by just unlocking this knob and then rotate it so that if you wanted to reorientate the camera. Now, what I like about that is that this RotoLock that's right here, in order to get the distance that I need to snug this up right up against the face of the filter wheel of this STF camera. It's kind of tight, but these are nice and lugged out, so a guy could still get in there, and I was able to get in there. But if you wanted to reorientate the camera, it is much easier to undo this lock, rotate it around, and then lock it down so that you don't have to mess with this once you put it in. Of course, you could go either way, but I'll probably be using this feature up here. Well, this is looking like a really good focuser and a good value for the money. The next step is to take it outside and focus on a star. Alright, welcome back. We're set up outside. We got it dark enough now. We're going to slew the scope to Regulus and Leo. So the best way to do this is when you turn on your camera and you've already got your focuser zeroed out to the sweet spot, then move the primary to where you get that star in focus. And so looking like right about there. And I'm using the hydrogen alpha filter. So I'm going to move over to the astronomic LPS filter. Just do a series of 1 second, and now we could see that I believe that's pretty close to being focused. Yep, I think it is. Adjust the primary, not the focuser, to get it as tight as you can. So now with that done, I'm going to lock this primary. Okay. Now we're going to try to find focus that little star there below Regulus using the William Optics focuser. At this focal length, which is anywhere from 2000 to 2125, depending on whether you're looking at the Celestron website or the Celestron white paper. And the reason why the focal length varies, the variation is due to the mirror moving up or down. So depending on the position of the mirror, that will affect your focal length. So that's why there's that discrepancy. The white paper, I believe, says 2125, but if you look in the scope, it says 2000. But anyway, at this focal length, any little movement, and you're going to see that star move quite a bit off. I believe that's about it right in there. That's the process, and it looks like it's working because I'm able to move it around, and yet I'm moving things around now, and that's why you're seeing that star go off. But I am at 0.19 away from the sweet spot. That's pretty nice. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so there you have it, and I hope this helped you guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you find these videos useful, because I'm always posting new updates and new ideas to make it easier for all of us to image. Clear skies, and thanks for watching Dakota Starry Nights.